Hey, it's Juck. On today's show, we got bad news about the playoff, Buckeye recruiting news, 5 team total winners, someone in college football got a big raise, and conference expansion has brought us some bangers. We will go over a few. Rest in peace, Pac-12, Juck on Bucks. You can go out and do whatever stupid deals you want to do, the most ridiculous buyouts in the world, and we won't even care. You'll get a total pass. You'll get a pass. Give us our jerseys back. It's our birthright. We deserve it. And maybe you should just sit out and listen. And welcome in. I was all set to take the day off as my voice is still a little scratchy, but then I stumbled across some irritating college football news, and I figured we got to talk about this. But first, let's talk about some good news. Chip Kelly is taking the lead on a 2026 quarterback prospect, and the Buckeyes have offered Brady Smigel out of Newbury Park, California. He's a 6'5", 205-pound, 5-star pro style. He's the number 2 quarterback in the class behind Jared Curtis, who the Bucs are also pursuing. Chip Kelly's leading this recruitment, as I said, and he's already familiar with Chip as they first met when Chip was at UCLA. So Brady's definitely interested, and everyone is interested in him. This is a kid who's doing his due diligence in recruitment because he's already visited Florida State, LSU, USC, Georgia, Oregon, and he said that a degree from Notre Dame is very interesting to him as well. So we'll see what Chip can do. You know, the knock on Chip is that he doesn't like recruiting and isn't particularly good at it, but he's at Ohio State now, not UCLA. And he also has a lot more to sell to recruits than he did there. So we'll see. James Laurinaitis is putting in work on Elijah Melendez. Melendez is a top 150 4-star from Osceola. And when I talk ratings, I go by the 247 composite because I think it's just important to stay consistent. A lot of people tailor the rankings of who they use different services to whatever argument they're making. If a guy's not as good, they use the lower one. If they want him to sound better, they use the higher one. I always go by 247 composite, but they have him at about 150, Elijah Melendez. I watched his tape, and this dude, he looks like a top 100 player to me, easily. So I went and checked Rivals, and he's their number 2 rated linebacker, and he is top 80-ish prospect in the country. And that seems more like it to me because this kid is nasty. Shot out of a cannon intensity. Some of the most fun linebacker tape I've watched in quite a while. And if you're someone who's into watching things like this, go watch Elijah Melendez. And then watch TJ Alford. That's the other running back that we're high, or the other linebacker that we're high on. And tell me how you think they stack up. Melendez is the guy for me, but we could land them both, and who knows? Laurinaitis on the job, it just might happen. The problem with Melendez is he's a hard Miami commit. Now, Laurinaitis knows this kid a little bit as he went down and visited him when he was at GA traveling. Remember when, before he was hired, he went out on the road a little bit. And he met him, and he offered him back then. So they just started talking again, and Melendez said that James texted him instantly when he got the job, and Melendez said Ohio State has a legit shot. I love that Laurinaitis' first test as a full-timer is trying to pull a stud who's committed to Miami away from them. So I usually give our coaches a little more leeway when I'm judging them if they lose battles to Miami. You know, like Justin Scott flipping, I don't put a whole lot of that on Larry because we know the game Miami's playing. And they're paying everybody a ton of money coming right out of high school, much more than anybody else in the country is right now. And that's tough when you're dealing with an 18-year-old. So it's an uphill battle. But Hartline has beat them. He's beaten them a lot on the recruiting trail. But he does that by starting relationships early, sincere relationship with kids, and then he can hold on. Now, if James can go and flip a kid that's already there, already committed to them, already seen that bag they want to give him, then we know he's that dude on the recruiting trail that we think he can be. So this is a massive test for James with Elijah Melendez. Not only a test that we would just love to see him win just to win and beat them, but man, is this kid special. I really want him bad. Elijah Melendez, check him out. And Brady Smigel, check him out and see how you think he stacks up against Jared Curtis, who's the number 1 overall in the class of 2026. So, on to the potential bad news. Big Ten commissioner and former Ohio State hero, Tony Petitti, has been talking with other commissioners about You guessed it, expanding the playoff. The 12-team playoff. The one that we haven't played yet, even once. He's been discussing going to 16 or 18 teams with auto bids for conferences. Of course, we all knew eventually that they would try to push this. But let me tell you, if you had, before they even start the first one, that they would try to expand it, then you're better than me at predicting things, because I think this is absolutely horrible. We love a sport that most good teams play a regular season of 3 to 5 truly competitive games. Watching a big regular season upset used to be like just below Buckeyes win for level excitement for me. Because let's face it, Bucks play a schedule where it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to win, all but 3 or 4 games out of a 12-game regular season. So upset watching was incredibly fun. A playoff adds a little insurance that the best team in the sport won't be knocked out of contention for one bad day, which, okay, Lord knows we Buckeye fans are familiar with having the best team in the country sitting at home during the championship because we had one bad day to a Michigan State or a Purdue. So the expansion was good to keep that from happening. But that could have been accomplished going to 6 or 8 teams in the playoff. They chose 12. Now, 12, you can have 2 bad days. I'm not crazy about that. But the playoff is so exciting. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled for the playoff. It's so exciting that the give and take there I can deal with. But 18 teams? Here's a hypothetical. Purely hypothetical. Michigan, let's say they come off a national championship winning season. In the following year, they play Texas, USC, Oregon, Washington, and Ohio State. So they got 5 big games, right? They beat Texas and Oregon, and they lose to Washington, SC, and Ohio State. So they're 2-3 in their competitive games. With 2 big wins, the regular season 9-3. In an 18-team playoff field, that 3-loss Michigan team, a team that went 2-3 in their 5 toughest games, is now in the playoff with an opportunity to win a championship. Now you've crossed over the line to me. This no longer balances out with regular season mattering and playoff is a lot of fun. A 9-3 team. Let's take the Buckeyes schedule next year. Buckeyes got 3 big games next year, right? Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan. In an 18-team playoff format, they could lose all 3 of those games and still get into the playoffs. If that was the format this year, LSU, 3 losses, Notre Dame with 3 losses, and NC State with 3 losses. They were all inside that 18 ranking. So we're talking Notre Dame, they're a pretty good team, right? They had a tough break there in the scheduling and a tough stretch. They had Ohio State, Duke, and Louisville in consecutive weeks. But that LSU defense was so bad it was actually comical to watch. And that NC State team, I caught them a couple times this year. They were as mid as they always are in the ACC. Those are playoff teams in an 18-team format. When these type of regular seasons, 9-3 regular seasons, and those caliber of teams are getting rewarded with a playoff berth, then we've just become a mini NFL. And the regular season meaning anything is just totally over. I hate the way this is trending. I think this is heading to disaster. But my hope is there's enough pushback at least to keep this at bay as long as possible. But of course there's no stopping them. Every added playoff game and every added conference member in those playoffs represents a ridiculous amount of money. $7.8 billion to be exact. And if they're already talking about expanding it again, before we even played a single version of the playoffs now, where does it stop? I'd love to hear what your perfect number is. But please, if it's 24, just don't write it in the comments. I don't even want to see it. It'll give me anxiety. And I read all your comments, even the really mean ones. I had a few of those today. The show's grown a little, and it was really exciting to see that. But then I realized that I'm also going to get called fat, ugly, stupid, big eyes, and small head. And it wasn't so exciting anymore. So about that regular season that I love, the college football regular season, If you're watching this, you've been a college football fan for a long time because I'm probably 7th on your list of shows that you watch, right? What's worse than when the Buckeyes play Akron and the rest of the slate of games is absolute garbage? Nothing. We wait all year for the football season to roll around. Then it rolls around and we get stuck on a Saturday where we blow somebody out and there's only one or two other interesting games on the entire slate of the day. So every offseason, because I'm a junkie, I go over next year's schedule at least once or twice, and I look at, all right, week 1, week 2, week 3. What are the big games? What are the headliner games? Well, I did that this morning, and let me tell you, as much as this playoff may have taken a little bit of the luster off the regular season, conference expansion has added a lot in, right? So I would like to go over with you a few of the sweet games we have to look forward to. We'll talk maybe the first half of the season today. The additions of USC, Washington, and Oregon, forget UCLA, to the Big Ten, and Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC has added so much fun, and I hate change. But you know what I love? Or what I would love? I'd love to get a time where Ohio State no longer plays teams that are not invested in playing good football. And I think with this Big Ten, SEC little powwow that they're doing, that we are marching towards something like that. And the only thing, and I mean the only thing that I'm jealous about in regards to the SEC is that with the exception of one school in Vanderbilt, they all care about winning football. And that's the teams I want to play against. Other teams that care, with fans that care. They all pack the stadiums, all of them. I mean, you look at Mississippi State, Mississippi, Arkansas. Those are teams we could equate in the Big Ten to Indiana, Purdue, Illinois. But Mississippi State, and Arkansas have packed stadiums and fun tailgates and fans who care. Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, they're packed with visiting teams if a good team goes. They're packed with us. We fill those places. They suck in all the conference. Like everybody else who goes out, like Wisconsin, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, bring in the money, and these losers just suck in the money and don't even try at football, don't invest in football. Northwestern's building a stadium, but the rest of them, they do nothing. And I don't want to play them. It's horrible. So let's get into some big games for next year. But first, I want to say congratulations to our guy, Eduardo, who won himself a soft new JUCK DAILY shirt when he answered the first trivia question contest we had. And that question was, who was the Buckeyes linebacker who was caught on camera choking Wisconsin quarterback Jim Sorgi at the bottom of the pile? And, of course, that player was senior linebacker Rob Reynolds, and that year was 2003. That choke knocked Sorgi out of the game, but it did not matter as the Badgers went on to beat the Buckeyes and end our 19-game winning streak that night. If you remember that game, I'd love to know what you thought about when that happened, because I couldn't believe it. I was stunned that he did it, and I was kind of embarrassed. We were the defending champs. It was a primetime game. The whole country was watching. That was before we had 4 or 5 different primetime games going on. Like, that was the game. Everybody was in on it, and that happened. It was pretty embarrassing. We've all seen running backs get their ankles twisted in a pile, but it was just a scumbag move. And I really liked that guy. I really liked Rob Reynolds a lot. But that was the most notorious grab in college football until Christian Wilkins grabbed Curtis Samuel's junk. Remember that one? That was a pretty famous grab, too. So congrats to Eduardo on today's free JUCK DAILY shirt. Today's trivia question is coming up later. All right, so let's roll with the biggest, most fun games the first half of the season. Week 1 is so awesome. Week 1, we got Georgia versus Clemson, LSU versus USC, Notre Dame versus Texas A&M, Miami versus Florida, and Penn State, West Virginia. That's a crazy slate. Week 2 sucks. It's only got Michigan versus Texas, and the other games are pretty much garbage. But Michigan will go to Texas, and they'll have a 16-game winning streak on the line. So that'll be fun to watch that get snapped in hilarious fashion. Week 3 is the insane week. Week 3, We got Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, Washington State, Pitt, West Virginia in the backyard brawl, one of my favorites, Utah versus Utah State, Colorado versus Colorado State. I mean, it's just every rivalry game that's like that second-tier rivalry is just smashed into week 3. Week 4, Oklahoma's first SEC game is against Tennessee. USC plays their first Big Ten game against Michigan. And Utah plays their first Big 12 game against Oklahoma State. I'm a big Utah fan. I love Kyle Whittingham, and I think that's an always underrated program. And we'll be back on them later when we talk about win totals. Week 5, Georgia, Alabama, USC, Wisconsin, Auburn, Oklahoma. Notre Dame seeks revenge against Louisville. Week 6, Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Clemson, Georgia, Auburn. Week 7, Buckeyes, Oregon, Penn State, USC, Texas, Oklahoma, and Red River, LSU, Ole Miss, and Georgia, Florida. So just looking at the games, and as I go over my sheet, like my sheet does not ever look like this when I do that. There's not this many games. The point is, we got tons of fun coming due to conference expansion, tons of new games that we otherwise would not have. And rest in peace, Pac-12. We appreciate your sacrifice for the good of the game. And honestly, we really needed it. We needed a pat on the back and a little thank you for putting up with us killing your regular season by soon jamming 18-team playoffs down your throat. So, Ryan Day, he is no longer the third highest paid coach in college football. Nick Saban's retirement and super agent Jimmy Sexton got a lot of guys raises. But the biggest one went to Steve Sarkisian, as the Texas coach's salary was doubled from $5 to $10 million a year, and he now becomes the 7th coach in the country in that $10 million a year club. And here is that club in order: Dabo, a joke, Kirby, Sark, Ryan Day, Kalen DeBoer, Lincoln Riley, and Mike Norvell rounds out our 7 $10 million a year coaches. My favorite part of the $10 million club is that my least favorite coach, Brian Kelly, is at 9.9 a year. And I know that burns his ass, and I love that. If you've never listened to the audio of Brian Kelly's team meeting at Notre Dame when he told them he was leaving, listen to it. It's worth your 3 minutes, because that's what he gave them. I can't stand him. I really cannot stand that guy. All right, now on today's free T-shirt trivia question. In 2012 and 2013, my St. Vincent St. Mary Fighting Irish of Akron, Ohio, won 2 consecutive state championships. That team was led by a 5-star future Buckeye who was a top 15 player nationally. His old man played at Auburn, and he was the most can't-miss prospect I've ever seen in my life outside of Beanie Wells. Absolutely dominant and a total freak show. The first person who puts his name in the comments wins today's Juck Eyes shirt. But before you do, I got a hint. It was not his teammate, Paris Campbell. Good luck. Now, I don't usually bet win totals because I don't like to tie my money up for the entire season. You know, I'm not a big bettor, but I always like to play, and I like to play a little bit. And if you put it all in win totals, you tie it up for the whole season. And, you know, of course, we always win them right at the end of the season, but you tie it up. I want to play with it. However, I was looking through, and I think I found some sincere bad lines, okay? And I'm not talking about Rutgers. I know everybody's in on Rutgers over. I'm going to fade the public on that one. I'm going the other way. That's not in here, though. My 5 locks, Iowa. Iowa over 7.5 games means they can lose 4 games, and we're going to cash. So they got Ohio State, Washington, Wisconsin, Maryland, Nebraska for their competitive games. Now they can lose 4. Let's say Ohio State, Washington, Wisconsin, Maryland and Nebraska, they can lose 4. I'm taking them. Iowa over 7.5. Michigan, under 9.5 wins. We're betting on Michigan to lose 3 games. Are you kidding me? So they got Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon. They're going to be underdogs in all 3 of those games, and I think they're going to lose all 3. Then they got to go out to Washington, where they will be the favorite, but that is a hard place to go play and a long way away. Then they play USC. They're probably going to be evened up with USC, right? So they only got to lose 3 of those games for us to cash. We're going to cash under Michigan, easy money. Oklahoma State over 7.5. We can lose 4 games to cash. So Mike Gundy, he's only won less than 8 games 3 times in the last 16 seasons, and they were hot at the end of last season. Of course, we remember them getting absolutely boat raced by Texas in the conference championship, but they were hot and they finished 9-3. So Ollie Gordon, that stud running back they got, he's back. He's a top 5 back in the country. He had 2,000 total yards last year. And their tough games, Arkansas, Kansas State, Utah, TCU, Texas Tech, a little iffy there. I think this is a bad line. Oklahoma State over 7.5. Book it. Utah Utes, my Utes, baby. Over 9.5. They can only lose 2 games. Now, they were 8-4 last year, but Cam Rising is back this year. Cam Rising is awesome. And Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in the country. And they got a new GA that everybody in the country is talking about. His name's Corey Dennis. Now, they're going to be favored in every game except maybe 2, UCF and Oklahoma State. So we're talking they can lose 2, and they're going to be favored in every game, and those 2 will be tight. They might go 11-1. Utah might be a playoff team. I really think so. So a lot of people are betting on Texas and Oregon to win their conference in their first year, right? I'm betting on Utah to win the Big 12 in their first year. And a sad one. This one makes me sad. Wisconsin is at 7.5, and I think Wisconsin is going to go under. And that sucks because I'm kind of rooting for Wisconsin in the Fighting Fix. So I'm betting they lose 5 games. And it's not because they aren't getting better. I believe they are. But their schedule is ridiculous. They've got tough games now. Alabama, USC, Oregon, Penn State, Iowa, Nebraska, and an improved Rutgers. That is a slate. But how about this for their fans to reward them? We're talking home games with Alabama, Oregon, and Penn State. That is a fun home slate. I don't know if you've seen the Buckeyes this year. It is not a fun home slate. It is not a good home slate at all. Virginia Tech, 7.5 games. We're going to take Virginia Tech in the over. They can lose 4 games, right? Now, we're talking Miami, Clemson, obviously going to beat them. Then they got Duke without Mike Elko, Rutgers, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and they can lose 4. So we know they're going to lose 2. That means they only got to go 2-2 in the games against Duke and Rutgers, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse. I'm going over with Virginia Tech. They're much improved. They went 5-3 in the ACC last year. They're getting a lot better. I think Virginia Tech in a couple more years is going to be more like the Virginia Tech we remember from years ago. Clemson. How about a bonus one? Clemson, over 9.5. Clemson finished smoking hot, and I think they're a playoff team this year with an easy schedule and a quarterback I believe in Cade Klubnik. They also have 10 of 11 starters back on offense, and while you may laugh at that, they're laughing at us when we say it too, right? Returning offensive linemen will always mean a lot to me. There's no other position on the field where you can improve so much by simply getting another year bigger and physically stronger and more technically sound in studying. Offensive linemen can improve vastly, and returning offensive linemen, first thing I look at to predict how much a team's going to improve. And Clemson's going to improve. They are going to be over 9.5. So there's our winners, right? Now, 4 of those 5 are going to hit for sure. And I don't want anything back from you but your subscription and your like on my video. You can come back and do it later. You can wait. It's fine. Okay, so as you know, I'm entering week 4 of doing my mom's favorite college football show, Juck on Bucks. In the first 3 weeks, I've covered a lot of topics. I've leveled some accusations. I've hit on some controversial things. But the one that got me the most angry responses was definitely not the one that I thought would. I thought that anyone who has added this little show is probably deep in the weeds of Ohio State football and understands that we're dealing with big-time college football, a sport that just sold its playoff for $8 billion. So what am I getting at? The last change that Ryan Day is going to make to the program, in my opinion, which is a dirty little term, processing a roster. What it really means is bringing in more players in the class than you have room for and making room for them by telling current players who are never going to see the field that they should probably pursue their dream elsewhere. Now, if this is a new concept to you, I understand how terrible it sounds. And I agree. That sucks. But here are the facts. We're putting ourselves at a disadvantage if everyone is bringing in more players per class than we are. I went back 9 classes, looking at players per class for each of our main competitors. I threw out the lowest number for each one because when you have a coaching change, you usually get a class with about 15 guys. So we're talking 2 full blue chip ratio classes, two 4 blocks, right? 8 total classes. Now, we went through Oklahoma, LSU, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Florida State, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. All the people who can beat us for a recruit, right? People that operate in the same rarefied air that Ohio State operates in. The Ohio State Buckeyes were dead last on that list, which did not surprise me. I don't know if it surprised any of you. I knew we would be there. Out of all those schools, what do we think we're just smarter than all the rest of them? No. There's an advantage to bringing in more kids. You have more chances. You can, if we hit on 60% of our guys and they hit on 60% of our guys, their guys, they're winning because they have more guys, okay? So let's go through the counterpoints to my argument that we should do this, and I believe Ryan Day will do this. Okay, I'd rather keep class numbers low to make room for bringing transfers in. 20 guys just transferred out. There's plenty of room. We'll make room. That's what processing the roster is. We make room for better players. This isn't a debate if this is an advantage. That's what the SEC started doing it for. It's an advantage. Debate is internally about whether you should do it, right? All right, counterpoint 2. Adding more guys is going to drop your rating because you'll have to add a bunch of 3 stars to fill out that roster. That's just incorrect. Ohio State has the ability to recruit a 27-kid class, the same as their 21-kid class, just the same as Georgia and Bama and Texas A&M. The rating's not going to drop. There's plenty of guys. You look at Dominic Kirks. Dominic Kirks went out to Washington. He did not sign his letter of intent because he's a 4-star and a high 4-star. And Ohio State said, listen, if there's room, we'll tell you, don't sign your letter of intent. So what did he do? He waited. Room became open. He signs. It's not bringing the rating down. Counterpoint 3. It's a scumbag move. Scumbag move. Yes. It's unsavory. There's no denying that. Ohio State hasn't done much of it because it's unsavory. But let's also keep in mind, we had 20 guys bounce out on us. I mean, this goes both ways. They have an opportunity to leave any school they want for any reason at all. And now they could do it as many times as they want. Players have more freedom now than they've ever had before. And it's time for schools to exercise some of their freedom as well. All right, counterpoint 4. They want an Ohio State degree. Well, that's definitely a bonus. And if that's their main priority, they can take out a loan like all the other walk-ons that work just as hard as them. We're not kicking them off the team, but we can only have 85 scholarships. And if you're not going to play at Ohio State and you were a player, wouldn't you rather just know? Like, tell me as a sophomore, there's a lot of guys that come in, they think they're going to be something, they don't end up panning out. And it's better to tell them. Let them go play at Cincinnati. Counterpoint. You lost your credibility for saying this. Okay. Are Nick Saban and Kirby Smart less credible? Because I'm just going off of what they do. And I'll reiterate once more. I'm a fan just like you talking football for fun. I don't claim anything else. So I don't have any credibility other than the credibility you give me to begin with. Now, I'd like to think I know a little something. I think I've demonstrated that to you. But if you don't think so, that's fine. And you don't have to watch. And it's okay. I'm just here having fun with the people who like to watch. So, I used to bother my family with all these random football topics, and they told me to go talk to the camera, so here I am. So if you tune in and talk with me, I'm extremely appreciative. If you subscribe, I'm incredibly flattered, but this isn't my job. I'm sitting outside my gym in my house, bud, and I'm loving it so far. So there's no reason to take shots at me because you don't like my football opinions. So that's today's show. Thank you all for watching. If you subscribe, I'll be flattered. If you like the video, I'll be even tickled pink, right? And like I always say,